attrition, or are you looking at current staff bidding and shifting into those two roles?
That's what it is. We're
Okay.
looking at reallocating current teaching positions internally.
So no additional cost?
No, it's budget neutral.
Thank you.
And to speak to that too, we are looking at two positions, but we're looking at where the numbers are and where the heaviest
Yeah.
needs are, and that's where the split's gonna come.
Sure.
But we do overlap at the middle school.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jessica. I'm going back to page 21, Department 9024, social worker, grades 9 through 12. This is where we reduced the high school social worker that has resigned due to family obligations. And as you've heard, that is not a wise decision. So this is where we'd like to put the money back, if we can. And so that's, I just wanted to point that out. And underneath that is Department 9025, Special Ed District-wide. This is where we budget for the Special Ed Director and the Office Manager that Jessica just spoke for and about. We are only budgeting half of that position in here. That position is currently for the 16-17 budget year being paid for totally out of local entitlement IDA federal grant, and that is not the best way to do it. And believe me, we have to report very detailed information to them, and to the federal grant department, and they have mentioned to us that we have to start pulling some of the positions out of the federal grant, because the federal grant is only used to support our school district, not to supplant actual positions. So we're gradually doing it. We're budgeting half of that position here, and I just wanted to say that I have over 17 years in school budgeting, and when I came here last year and there was no special ed clerical support to speak of, I was shocked. Because every district that I know of has at least one special ed secretary, if not more. So I thought it was a great idea to bring that person in, and they've been working out excellently. So I just wanted to speak to that. Page 22 is the continuation of the special ed district-wide department, and that's where the legal special ed line is. We put in 20,000 for this year, which is a slight decrease, but I wanted to point out to the people in the audience and the school departments, we need that legal money because special ed law is very complex, and it would be much cheaper to pay a lawyer to help us figure something out than to pay for the lawsuit that may come after the fact. So this money is well spent, well used, so I highly recommend leaving that in there. The next department is Department 9026, Social Worker K through 8. I'm going to go through these fast because these are all counts that we've already seen. I just want you to see how the special ed department is broken out. This is due to the Maine Department of Ed, actually the feds require this, being broken out like this. So we have, as I said, Social Worker K through 8. Next department is 9027, Psychological K through 8, psychologist. The next department is 9028, speech and language. Yes, Jessica just pointed out, under Department 9027 for psychological, that is where we're budgeting 20% of the behavior specialists that Jessica spoke to. Half of the behavior specialists is being budgeted for out of local entitlement, which is a slight reduction from this current year. We're budgeting 60% this current year, so we are working towards doing what the government is requiring of us. So I just wanted to point out there that position is partially budgeted in there. Department 9028 is speech and language K through 8. Department 9029 is occupational therapy K through 8. I'm now at the top of page 23. We have Department 9030, which is actually English language learners K through 8, which is not a special ed department, and I'm handling it over to Kathy. Kathy.
No. Keep going with special ed because we're gonna come. ELL comes up again. And
Yeah,
I'll
you'll
just
talk then? Okay, so I just want to point out, English language learners is not a special ed department. I didn't set up how these accounts are set up, just letting you know. It's not a special ed department. It is another department that we have to help students who that English is not their first language. We do break it out between K through 8 and 9 through 12, but as Kathy said, it comes up later, so we'll talk about it later. Department 9031 is special ed extended school year, K through 8. And Jessica spoke how if you look at the figures for last year, 16-17, or actually that's this current year, because it was this past summer, it's much less than the previous year, but the program was very different, and I think it was, we didn't provide as large a program or support that really the kids probably needed. So we're ramping it back up this year to make up for that. And if you notice what we spent in 15-16, what we're requesting for 17-18 is actually less than what we spent in 15-16. So I just want to put that out there. Department 9032, the next department is physical therapy K through 8. And then we have Department 9033, which is physical therapy 9 through 12. I'm on page 24. We have Department 9034, psychological 9 through 12, and that's where 10% of behavior specialists is budgeted. Department 9035 is speech and language 9 through 12. Department 9036, occupational therapy 9 through 12. And then we come to English language learners again, Department 9037. This is 9 through 12.
You might as well finish 9038.
Okay, yeah, so after that is, on the top of page 25 is Department 9038. That's also special ed extended school year for grades 9 through 12. And you can see that we spent very little money for that this past summer. But if you look at the previous year, we spent about the same, that we're just a little under what we're requesting this year. So we're trying to bring it back up to where it was because of the needs of the students. So, yeah, really?
Okay.
Okay.
And actually, before I talk about ELL, I wanted to make 2 more points about GT that aren't in that new program proposal, so that new position proposal. So, one is that I think it's important to note that providing GT instruction elevates all instruction. And that if we are able to provide direct services to those students, say through a push-in model where they're going into a classroom, they can actually be, say, organizing a reading group for more than just the students who are identified for GT. If they decide to offer an Odyssey of the Mind program, that can involve more than just the GT students. So I just wanted to be clear that although it would be a GT teacher, and that's the population we want to serve primarily, it's going to have a ripple effect beyond just the GT population. And then the second point is that I get calls from parents who are looking to move to the area, and they are checking us out and they're checking out other districts, and it is not uncommon for those families to say that their child has been identified as GT and they want to know what our GT program is. So in the time of declining enrollment, I think we want to attract those families, and so I just wanted you to be aware of that as well. And now about ELL. Our program is static, it's chugging along. You won't see dramatic changes in the amount that's being requested for next year. I just would mention that currently we have 1 full-time ELL teacher who provides direct services to 9 students, some of whom are really at the beginning stages of learning the English language. And she also consults for 6 and then has another 6 students on monitor status. So as I said, chugging along, and you can speak to the accounts.
Okay. Well, their accounts are pretty much the same as everybody else's accounts, and as she said, they're chugging along. We no big increases, no major changes. So I'm on page 25, Department 9040, which is the athletics for the middle school. Another thing, Jeff has done a good job keeping that pretty well flat. Actually, it's a reduction for this year. And the department after that is Department 9041, which is athletics for the high school. I do want to make a quick point out that the salaries for the coaches is based on the teacher bargaining agreement, so that is pretty much, it's fairly well set. And I'm going to flip to page 26 and Department 9042, which is athletics system-wide. We budget for a part of a secretary under there, 80%, along with the athletic director. And we do also pay for a trainer to come for our students. Department 9050 is summer school. I believe it has another name. I just call it summer school, but
Open Door Studio.
Open Door Studio. Okay, well, because of our budget constraints and stuff, and cuts, we have taken that out of the budget for this year, and we will see how that goes, but I wanted to point that out to you guys. Department 9060 is debt service, and this is, I may have misspoke earlier, but under debt service, and this is per the DOE, you can only record bonds for major capital improvements, and I misspoke earlier, a renovation is considered a major capital improvement. So that's why these bonds are listed here and not under the buildings, because they are considered major capital improvements, not roof repair or things like that. Roof repair is not a major capital improvement, just in the eyes of the DOE. We do have an overall reduction under debt service of 18,000. And then finally, are you still awake, Noel?
I'm still here.
Technology. I'm gonna hand it over to Noel.
Okay, like everybody else, I have some handouts. So while that's being passed out, I'm gonna take a little bit of Catherine's thunder from her, since she's doing such a great job, and talk about page 27. Basically, and I'm gonna go all the way to the bottom of it. And the bottom shows a reduction of 36.5 K. That number is of a lease that is retired of 33,000?
37.
37,000. Okay, so 97 has stayed pretty much flat, with a little bit of reduction. However, if we go to page 28, this is what the handout that is going around will cover and talk about. This year, we started to work on another 3-year plan for technology. And if you look at page 1 of the handout, I'm just going to go through this. The great thing about this handout, I knew I was going to be last, so I included a lot of pictures.
Somebody who knows the audience.
And also, the other thing that you guys might be happy about it, Greg has just challenged me to go under 3 minutes of his time, so hopefully I can do both of them at the same time. The first thing, we worked on the technology plan. It really started with our some surveys from Bright Bites. They are part of the program of Milky. They are free for both the high school and the middle school, and they survey both the students and the staff on basically all things about technology. So we had those as type of work scope before we started the tech plan. Next thing that we did in the spring of 2016 is we had a technology curriculum committee that met for a couple of months. And we came up with a curriculum that was about 80% there. That work is going to continue on next year, just to tie up that last 20%. But we pretty much knew what we wanted our students to accomplish during each grade level. Then we had a bunch of technology plan committees at building levels. And I have to thank my colleagues, my assistant principals, who are still here. Look at that, isn't that great?
They're awake.
They were the main charge of them. I attended 97% of them, I think, but they were there all the time, guiding their staff members and getting the staff members to go and have open discussions, and it was a great activity that produced a lot of things in the tech plan. Then we I brought that up to the tech level, and we talked it at the DLT or the A-team, whichever you want to call us, and talked about the tech plan. We then conducted a couple of surveys for both the high school staff and the students to determine, how they're using the equipment and what they would think they would like in the future. Where we currently are at the tech plan is we're waiting for a decision on the devices. Everything else is going to be all set. And we're also going to, as soon as that occurs, then I will have a sustainability plan. in place, and I can bring that to the teachers and let them take a look at it one more time and make any more final comments. And then I will set up a meeting with the school board to go over it. So that's where we are now. Page 2 just shows you a little bit of our key driving points for the technology plan. Again, the first shows you that there are a number of issues that we found that were that we needed help on and work on, using the 4 Cs in the classroom, digital citizenship, increasing our professional development, learning capabilities, and using a little bit more online resources and technology. So with that, we also looked at the plan and said, well, why reinvent the wheel? The INSTI standards, which is the International Society of Technology, have come up with ways or goals and milestones that we really need to cover to become technology proficient and to have all teachers and students really focus on technology and what it really means. So part of that is obviously, if you look at the standards for both the students and the staff members, they're basically the same. You know, a lot of things is digital citizenship, as I talked to before, becoming thinkers, becoming creative communicators, and so on and so forth. So with those two, we came up with 5 main goals. One, obviously increasing technology offers for professional development. Because we're thankful for the 14 extra days or half days that we have put in the calendar and stuff like that, we plan to work with our friends, Catherine, to make sure that we are using some of that time to do professional development. Another thing is having a Common Sense Media certification through the district, which is very important. Learning management system is utilizing Google Classroom or eBackpack so that there is more exchange between the students and the teachers digitally. Stop using paper and with the ability to correct and to form digital portfolios. Another thing that we want to do is repurpose the computer labs. Back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we used to have, or we still do have, 25 computers, and the teachers and the students went down, and technology was kind of on the side. And so with the 1-to-1 program and 2-to-1 program in Pond Cove, we're trying to make sure that the technology is part of the classroom, part of the instructions. So we want to repurpose the computer labs, make them more teacher-driven than a computer teacher. And then finally, work with the sustainability of the equipment, the technology equipment. So our challenges. Well, before Christmas, everything was going well, and we were all singing very well. And then Milty decided to end most of the Milty program, which allowed us to lease computers and equipment from the state, so we would all be able to group buy through that cohort. We have, so they're going to honor all the lease plans that are currently in place. They're going to revert back to just honoring 7th and 8th grade laptops for the students and supposedly the teachers to support them. They're going to take away the network infrastructure, so all the access points and the switches that and the management system entails. So those are the things that we have to really think about. That changed a little bit of our thought process. Page 4. So our other challenges. So right now we have 1-to-1 in 5th grade iPad 2s. We have 2-to-1, that's not 2-to-A, 2-to-1 in Pond Cove. So they are about 7 years old now. They'll be the last year we can use them on the state testing. And they've really done a very, very good job for us, but we need to look on what we're going to do in the next couple of years.
No. So reduction in the Milty program, yet we need these pieces of equipment to take the state testing.
That's correct.
Just want to make sure I Got that.
That's correct. All
No
the-
laughing. I'm doing the math in my head.
Also, when doing the technology committee at the high school, it came up to the point that the students and both the students and both the students and the staff saw a need at the high school level to have keyboards, tactical keyboards, to help them with typing assignments. In the lower levels, there are some more need for keyboards and so on and so forth, but the iPads seem to be working very well as far as project-based devices. At the high school, they're looking to use a lot more of the term paper type of assignments, and they're looking to for an increase of the capabilities of using a tactile keyboard. So that was kind of the challenges of it. So then we looked at, okay, these are the challenges in front of us, so what are we going to do about it? Well, the first thing, everybody knows that we could do nothing, and that's really not very viable, but it's an option, and we have to look at and discuss about it. The second one was, well, we'd have the students at the high school bring their own device. And there are cons and there are pros and cons of each of those things. When we talked about it at different levels, we decided that it really was not, the cons outweighed the pros. So we went and we talked to Falmouth, who has had that program for quite a while, and had a long discussion with them, very good open discussion with them. But we felt that it just would add an extra burden to our staff with different devices in the classroom. So the third option was to provide devices for all the students. So we did a survey, and the first thing, and part of asking about bring your own device was one of the questions of the survey was if you had a laptop at home, could you bring to school every day? And we found that out of the 350 response we got, we had a 60% said that they didn't have one to bring. So the next survey we did is that if you had an option between having an iPad Pro with a keyboard, and the keyboard now with the iPad Pro is not a Bluetooth keyboard anymore, and it's not a separate keyboard with a lightning cable. It actually can be integrated with the iPad. Would you take that? Would that be one of your choices, or would a MacBook laptop be one of your choices, or a Chromebook? And it's kind of, like I said last time during our discussions, kind of asking them, you know, would you like to have a Ferrari or would you like to have a Ford Pinto? And so you have to, you know, when you look at the graphs, you have to understand that. And the other thing is, as I mentioned last time, a lot of the comments that came back was that the iPad didn't have a keyboard. So I'm not quite sure they read the survey, but you know, I forgive them. So in this case, the students obviously wanted to have the MacBook Pro, I mean the MacBook Air, and their second choice was a Chromebook. Another picture we took was asking the staff, the teacher device, you know, how it would interact with your instructional in the classroom, and the teachers ranked having a MacBook obviously first, and the second they would think an iPad with keyboard would work very well, and the third was a Chromebook. So one of the challenges we had about 3 weeks ago, that our state decided that they didn't want to give us $800,000. So Howard came to me and we talked a little bit and confirmed that, you know, what could we do, what would be the least impact savings of money, and we decided to put the iPads in the budget. So that was where that money is as you look down to it. So if you look at page 28, you'll notice that, and I'm going to steal Catherine's thunder again, you'll notice that there's a $54K increase in technology at Palm Cove. What we propose to do, we have a 2-year lease on one and a 3-year lease on the other of the iPads Airs that are currently at the high school. We've moved half of them down to Pond Cove, and they will continue with a 2-to-1 program. Tom and the staff at Pond Cove are doing very well with the iPads. If we retire the iPad 2s, maybe we bring down some of the iPad 2s to kindergarten, first grade, maybe have fourth grade being all 1-to-1s, keeping it in the grade level. Then if you go down a little bit further to 9072, you'll see another 54K increase. And that's the second half of those leases that are currently the Milty leases up here at the high school. And again, those would replace and have one-to-one in the classroom, not bringing them home for fifth and sixth grade to work with. And again, retiring the iPad 2s. And then finally, if you go down to the increase on the technology 9073, you'll see that the numbers are about washed with the increase or the suggested purchase of the iPad Pros with keyboards. So that's where those numbers have come up with. Again, as you heard today, with all my friends around the table, is that there is a lot of needs. And so we're trying to be very respectful for all those needs there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
How'd you do on your time?
I don't know. Did I get the end of it?
I didn't time it, I was Catherine did.
You got, no, almost 15 minutes. Sorry.
Sorry.
Hey, you know, didn't meet the challenge.
Next
Oh,
year.
well. It's close.
So we have 12 minutes scheduled left.
I just want to say one thing. We didn't discuss athletics other than to say there was a decrease, and I just wanted to say, you know, that I noticed. We didn't have you talk, and
Oh, sorry, I should have said something. Jeff and I were communicating early today, and he's like, well, I really don't have a presentation. They have all my participation numbers and stuff, so I'll be there if they have questions.
Yeah, and the budgetary increase was so slight. One of the changes, I was going to point out, the transportation piece, which we have highlighted earlier. There was a change in the fee structure that occurred last spring. So that's impacted the budget a little bit for this current year. So we tried to reflect that in next year's budget. And then there was a high jump that we were hoping to replace that was 21 years old. That was the extent of
didn't want that.
budgetary increases.
I think every budget presentation should include high jump.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Well, we're not,
very sporty and flashy, but it's definitely a need.
it is, definitely. We
I know
have
you
two
have
more
more.
departments, and then we should be good to go. Department number 9074 on page 28, that's food service. Last year, we ended up transferring over 100,000 to help defray the cost for the food service, which the majority of food service is outside of the regular budget. They are not fully self-supporting, but they try. But as time has gone by and salary and benefit costs have gone up and food costs have gone up, we're starting to pull some of the other costs into the general fund. So I have budgeted for professional development training and because food service has required trainings that they need to do, so instead of having that charged to the food service budget, which can't really handle it right now, we added it here. And also travel, because our food service director does do a lot of traveling around the district to and from and stuff. So we've added that here, as well as a fund transfer. We're anticipating having to cover $58,000 of the food service cost for next year. But I just want to point out to everybody, there is a tab in the budget binder, and there is a link on the website for food service. And the food service budget that's not in here is over $700,000. So the amount of money that we're covering in the budget is minimal compared to the overall budget. So I just want to point that out. And then contingencies, the very last department that we have, and we have reduced it from 180,000 this current year to 100,000, and that's for unanticipated items that crop up, like we have a huge spike in enrollment, we have to hire an even another teacher or something like that. So that's what that's for. So I'm done. I'll hand it off to somebody else.
Wow. How's everyone feeling? That was a lot. Thank you so much for hanging with us for the last 3.5 hours. So to reiterate, we have made a decision. Howard,
It
yes.
just dawned on me, one of the new proposals that wasn't discussed tonight
Ooh, that's true.
is the one that is put forward, it's in you, would want to add it to the proposal for new positions. It's
Yes.
actually to bring back a position that we had in the past, which is an administrative assistant to your school nurses.
Right.
We had that position in the past, I'm sure for good reason, it was taken out. Please look over it's a several-page document explaining why they're asking for this and why I think it's very convincing. And I'll say this, the nurses are taking on a very different role than what people thought of for school nurses in the past. Now, I'm sure it's true for everybody, by the way, but they are working with more children with very complex health needs. We have a growing number of children, for example, in our district that we require regular nursing attention and guidance on a daily basis. And our nurses are not only working on the area of physical health, but also mental health. I mean, I know that we have psychologists and counselors, but believe me, they have a role in all of that, and sometimes they're the best fit for a certain child. But in order to do that and to be more active on response to intervention teams and student support teams and being involved in working with children and their parents and doctors, there's an amount of business work in terms of filing, in terms of keeping things organized that falls on them now. And it means that they either do that work after their school year ends or on weekends or other times just to keep up with work that's required. Or it doesn't get done. I think it does get done, but it's on them. And I think you'll see in the outline what you gain from this, but they would appreciate somebody full-time. That's what they used to have. And if not, they would be appreciative of a half-time position, but that's in your packet.
Excellent. And I'm sorry, I should have asked if there was anything else before I started jumping into conclusion. So I will ask that now. Is there anything else before I jump into conclusion? Okay, thank you. So we did make a decision this evening to pull one position out and discuss it sort of out of turn, and that would be the Director of Teaching and Learning position, since we are in the midst of hiring a superintendent, and that would be, I think, relevant to the position that we're posting and hiring for. So I did state earlier that that was going to be discussed on March 21st, but I was wrong. It's actually next week at our regular scheduled business meeting. We'll add an agenda item, and that's Tuesday, March 14th. Okay. And then also as a reminder, by Tuesday, March 14th, should you have any questions after sticking with us and going through all of the budget numbers with a fine-tooth comb, thank you very much, Catherine, and thank you very much for each of our department heads for doing that. If you have any questions, if you could submit them to Elizabeth Seifries, who with Howard will in conjunction ensure that those numbers get filtered out to the right appropriate person and give them at least hopefully a week's time to spend some thoughtful time, I'm sure you will, to dig up any information that would be relevant to the questions posed. And those questions are scheduled to be answered on our Tuesday, March 21st meeting. With that said, anything else that you may want to dig into, for all the materials that are handouts from tonight and all of the budget packet materials can be found on our homepage. Just click at the top link for the 2017-2018 school budget. That's it. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.